Welcome at this brief presentation about media technology. My name is Bas Haring. I'm one of the teachers there. This is Edwin van der Heijden, also a teacher, media technology. And this is Imani Dab, and she's a student, media technology. And we together will share some information about our program. And we hope to do so in a rather informal way, and we interfere with each other and respond. And I want to start with addressing one single question, and it is, what actually are we? What is media technology? And in order to explain what we are, I want to describe the regular scientific process. The regular scientific process, well, you can have all kinds of sophisticated models of what science is, but it usually starts with some questions, some things you are curious about, something that you want to know. That's phase one. And the second phase is that you do something, and usually we call it research. You do something in order to answer your question. And finally, you have an answer and you produce a product. Typically the product is an article, something like that, or an application. And this is the regular scientific process, or at least science knows these three steps in its process. And what usually, if you go to some master's program, you are trained in a tradition in all these three steps. So you go to some place and there they typically ask a particular kind of question that has a history or has a place in a scientific community. Typically, if you go to some program, there's one kind of questions asked. Secondly, you are usually trained in a specific method to answer the particular question at hand. And finally, the typical output of the scientific process everywhere in most places is the article, the scientific article. At least this is the case in the natural sciences and a little bit more also nowadays in the humanities and the social sciences. And the social sciences also articles are the regular output. And we at Media Technology want to encourage you to dare to do different in all these three different steps. You don't need to be different in all steps all the time, but we want to encourage you to ask your own questions, to do your things in order to answer the question, and if you have found an answer, to find other products that show the answer to other people. And I think you can compare somehow with a sort of safe haven. I think you know the concept of Asterix, and the well-known French comic. This Asterix and his fellows, they are resistance against the Roman Empire, and they are a safe haven for others. And I got the impression that we are like that at the university. If you go to a regular or to most master programs, you are trained in some fashion, and we encourage you to do a little different. Just to show you some examples. Edwin will show more examples. First example about asking questions. It's very difficult to come up with own personal, individual, or autonomous questions. But the example that pops in my head is a project of a student a couple of years ago, and she was curious to sleutelbakjes in Dutch, or key containers. I think the word is in English. There's actually not a real translation of the word sleutelbakje. It's a little container that people sometimes have to store keys in and other stuff they have in their homes. What is actually this key container? What goes in? What's the concept of it? Does it change? Does it not change? And she was intrigued by the concept of a key container. And she studied it in a very conventional way. The output was also very conventional, scientific article. But the question was very own. It was her research question. And it had no meaning in a tradition. It was her own question. Just an example of a peculiar own question. Secondly, the process that we allow students to take to address their questions can go all directions, but using data that is available is typically something that we encourage our students to do, or program something and do things yourself, make things in order to answer your question. That's typically something that we encourage our students to do. And finally, if you have found your answer, we allow our students to change it into an installation or a computer program or a game or a completely different form than the scientific article. I think that we are in this a very special program at our university, and this whole idea of a safe haven in which you can do your own autonomous scientific research is the word that is the concept I really feel that we are like that. One more comment. Why are we in the computer science department? That is because computer science enables this way of working. A computer is a tremendous tool by which you can do all kinds of scientific research. And a computer is a cheap thing, you know. Or most people have a computer, and it opens a whole world for you. And that's why we are in the computer science department. Now, my first question to Imani is, do you recognize the picture as I sketch it? Do you feel it like that, or are you now flabbergasted by the things that I say to these guys at home?
No, I do feel the same way. I'm actually from an engineering background, so I was doubting between the computer science masters and this one. But the freedom that you have, specifically in asking the questions and your end result, that is what makes media technology what it is. So I do agree there.
Okay, and this whole concept of the safe haven, do you also recognize it or not?
Yeah, I mean, if you have unconventional thoughts, then I guess this is a safe haven. But if you already have something in mind that is a perfect fit for something, a conventional research field, basically, then media technology might not be as great as a program, maybe.
Okay, I get it. I think this is all I wanted to share with the people at home. Is it okay that you now just go on?
Sure. No, I think we start with some slides. We give a bit of an overview of what we do in the program. I think
just stay here, isn't it?
Sure. No, of course. Yeah. I mean, hopefully. Yeah. No, we keep on asking each other questions. I think it's important to have a bit of dialogue here. That's also I would say it's a format that fits us, and maybe it's also a format that fits our program. Yeah, because one of the things that I dislike the most about the online form of education, and maybe also in doing the information event like this, is to have a dialogue with the students, to have a dialogue with interested potential students.
And we are informal.
We are informal. And for us, I think the most important thing is not whether something is true or false. It is the way to it, and to be always able to discuss something, to keep on discussing it, and to keep on developing things. Yeah, so in this slide, the first slide you see here, I think a very short summary of what Bas has been explaining in much more detail. Creativity in academia, in a way. We like playfulness. Playfulness meaning is that it's sure we do serious research, but we believe that being playful and being serious don't contradict each other. Yeah, we think that actually by being playful you can come to insights that you otherwise do not come to, meaningful insights. Nevertheless,
you agree?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and here it's on the bottom of the screen. But personally inspired research, meaning that it really we are interested in students asking their own questions instead of us giving the students the questions. Yeah, very quickly, one short project here. We see birds, and we see a yellow drone integrated in the image. This is the graduation research project of Rinus Bot. And what was Rinus Bot interested in? He was interested in, first of all, he thought, we have birds, we have drones, and they both fly. And they both fly in the same space, so they share the same space. And what Rinus was interested in is the question, how do birds actually react to drones? And in order to do that, he had to think about, well, first of all, how am I going to approach this question? How am I going to answer this question? And he did this in Rotterdam, having a drone, batteries, and actually food for the birds. And he went to the Uromas Park, where he every day repeated the same process to see, and he performed different tasks with the drone, and like that, he was studying how the birds were actually reacting to the drone. A question that really originated from himself, but also a question that turned out to be a very original question, a question that, in this case, a second supervisor joined the graduation project, but the second supervisor with a biology background, simply because, this particular question was also not asked yet in the biology field.
Can I give one more comment about this project? Since what was also curious or special of this graduation project is that it ended by a little video that he had made about his project, just a little mock-up BBC documentary of 5 minutes about drones and birds. Richard Attenborough, or fake Richard Attenborough, gave his voice to this little video, also as real scientific output. So this video was real scientific output, and that's what we encourage our students to do. Okay, sorry, go on.
Yeah, no, important. Yeah, and so I think it's very important the format of the output, because this slide here, with what we say, what we are about. Sure, we are about actual scientific research, but it is about being open and playful with all aspects, as Bas explained in the beginning, and we have a broad perspective. Yeah, so meaning we also look into the arts. We are not an arts program, we are not a creative arts program, but we look into the arts because we think there are similarities in how artists think, how you can think in science, meaning we visit festivals, visit exhibitions, and playing around with conceptual thinking, for example, what happens in the art is also something that we think is very meaningful in a scientific context. Here, the last point in this slide is called science by doing, and what do we mean with that? Science by doing is that we often think, sure, we can try to do everything in the head, we can do things with literature, but actually by really playing around, testing things, building things, you will come to insights that you would otherwise never be able to come. And that's something as a methodology that we like very much, something that makes our program, I think, also
and
special.
that also, again, explains why we are in the computer science department. Since computer science allows us to do all kinds of things. The computer is really a fancy tool that you can do so many things with. Okay.
Yeah, no, very much, very important. And
you do have an engineering background, so you were used to computer programming, etc.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Not all students have that, but we want our students to be familiar with a computer. Okay.
Yeah. Meaning that we actually, we will see that in a later slide, but since we're addressing the topic anyway, I think it's important to mention, we do require some very basic skills of programming for entering the program, and otherwise we believe that we are very good at further developing these skills, so that will happen in the context of the program. Based in the computer science department, but we do collaborate with the Royal Conservatoire in The Hague and the Royal Academy in The Hague, or Royal Academy of Arts, I should say, meaning that we have a couple of lecturers from there involved in our program, but also we have a more, let's say, sure, in the elective context you can do many different things, but we have an active involvement in this particular case. We are a 2-year program, meaning 120 ECTS. The program is taught in English, and we encourage our students to also speak English outside of the classes, outside of the lectures, to create a true community. The male-female ratio is approximately 50-50.
It's about 50-50,
yeah. And some of the other programs in the computer science department are, in that sense, jealous of us. And what you'll get from our program is a Master of Science degree. Yeah? I think things that you are familiar with, but good to summarize them quickly. There are all different kind of ways of organizing the courses, but this is one way that we like to look at the courses. We like to think about conceptual skills and media-oriented courses. A couple of courses that are skills-oriented, creative programming, hardware and physical computing. But it's important to notice that we are absolutely not a skills kind of program. Yeah? And sometimes there's a bit of a misunderstanding that students apply for our program because they think, okay, now I'm going to learn all the technical skills that I need to do this and this. Well, yes, skills are important, but the goal of our program is doing research, becoming a researcher, and being able to act, as we sometimes also call it, as an autonomous researcher, meaning that you possess all the skills required to do the research. Therefore, we do have courses regarding academic skills and being a scientist, but also we think that it's important to look a little bit at ourselves and to put the human context into the program. And these are, let's say, the four categories that you can use to look at the courses. And these are the compulsory courses. So we have other courses that we will address afterwards. Very quickly, the year starts with a field trip. We have a course, Essentials in Art and Music, that bridges, let's say, the arts and the sciences with each other. Metamedia, a course that really makes you think on what could a medium be, and to stretch the whole idea of, so we have a very classical understanding of what a potential medium can be, but I think this can be stretched much further. Artificial creatures, a course to actually make autonomous and independent artificial creatures. Creative programming, we spoke about, so this is a follow-up on the basic programming skills that you possess. Hardware and physical computing, important to actually make the computer interface with the world, and to take the world into the computer, but also to bring the computer into the world itself. Academic skills, research fundamentals, which is being addressed both from, let's say, a more natural sciences kind of perspective and a humanities kind of perspective. Playful and creative science. Maybe, Bas, you want to say?
No, it just actually it tries to encourage and to show. It tries to show examples of unconventional, playful, and creative science to encourage students to do similar things.
Yeah. A specific course on actually the sciences and the humanities. Portfolio. As a student, you're asked to develop your portfolio during the whole program. We think it's important for you and important for us. Human-computer interaction and information visualization. Sound, space, and interaction, which is really speaking, taking again the human into context. And also a special course, we can think about human cognition, but it's very interesting to stretch that into the domain of non-human cognition. Let's go a little bit here. And Imani, maybe you can say something about the type of assignments that we give from a bit of a general perspective.
Yeah, and this is students working.
Yeah.
So do you recognize this, and is this the kind of work that you do, or is this a mock-up image?
No, this is definitely the reality of media technology, I would say. There's a lot of projects, and even as homework assignments, usually it's things to do. So there's a lot of actual researching, actually building things, actually experimenting with things.
And how many of the courses have an actual exam where you have to study and make an exam?
Ooh, I think I've only had 2 courses where I actually had to do an exam, like in a traditional way.
Yeah?
Okay.
Yeah.
And the rest is making
stuff
and doing stuff.
Indeed, just projects.
Yeah.
And you always make something, or you also can give a proposal that you write down and you don't need to do something actually?
No, in most things you actually have to build something.
Okay, good.
You cannot just be like, well, in an ideal world, this. Like, that's not really what we're going for.
That's important for us, since you can describe things, how you would plan them to do, but if you do them, reality is different, so we encourage students to do really stuff.
Okay, so I see what you mean. So your plan can fail, but you cannot show up with anything but like a proposal. Like you do actually have to try to make your thing reality.
Yeah, one of the things that I often say is that we have very open assignments. Yeah, so these project assignments are open, but I think also if there are quite some assignments where you have to write an essay or write a paper or compare papers to each other. But in these cases, again, it doesn't have the exam format, but it's very open, and the most abstract way of describing such an assignment is telling the student, show us that you have learned something. Yeah, and so meaning that it's the student who has to start thinking about a meaningful way of showing how you have learned something.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you recognize that?
Yeah, I also really like that because you can everyone can mix their own interest in the assignments usually, and you really see like everyone's personality in their end product, and that's really cool.
Cool.
Well, maybe this is also a moment to speak a little bit about the background from our students.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you say something about where do our students come from?
So they come from everywhere, basically. I think there's a part that has an engineering background, like me, or a computer science background. There are students that have an artistic background, but there's also students who have backgrounds in like natural sciences or design or just from anywhere, I would say.
But that's where they come from a content point of view.
Yeah.
And where do they come from geographically?
Oh, all over the world.
Okay.
So I have classmates that are from China, from Greece, from France, also just here from Leiden as well,
Okay.
or
Yeah.
Rotterdam.
Yeah.
So really
Good.
from everywhere.
Yeah.
Good. Okay.
Yeah, one particular course, and this is at the end of the first year, is a course that leads to an exhibition. We should make it clear, we don't call this an art exhibition. Maybe certain works can be seen as artworks, and that's, I would say, up to the makers of the works. But here we really make the student think about communicating a statement in the form of an experience. So it's not the statement that is articulated in text. The students have articulated the statement in text, but in the exhibition, the statement has to be conveyed in a different form by means of an experience, and this experience brings you the statement in the exhibition context. So here we see some examples, but we find that important also regarding to what Bas said, in form of how do you actually communicate your results, and we think this course is a very good exercise in thinking about different forms of communicating your actual scientific results. We spoke about
Where are we in the times? Do we still have time to discuss all these?
Yeah, I think we have a bit
we
of
still
time.
okay? Yeah.
We have another.
Okay.
We have another 8-9
Okay,
minutes. Yeah. So we spoke about the compulsory courses, and this slide is about, let's say, more or less the rest, except for the graduation project that we should speak about. We have excellent courses that normally take place, let's say, in the third semester, and where we want our students to specialize a little bit, but specialize in the context of our program. And we are offering currently 5 courses, but this is also changing in dynamic. And you see them here: computational creativity, research seminar on artificial intelligence, another research seminar on social technologies, a course called social signal processing, which is more about communication with robot, communication of affect, and a course called scientific narration and visualization. Yeah. Then otherwise about 10 to 18 ECs, and this is flexible because of the amount of excellent courses that you take, and not all excellent courses have the same amount of credit points. In the elective course, you're very free. It's really to deepen yourself in a personal way. You can do these electives within Leiden University, but you can also do them somewhere else.
But I must add, Leiden University is a general university, so we offer a plethora of topics at our university, and it's really an advantage, I would say, of a general university compared to, say, a technical university. We have way more different topics to choose from.
Yeah, very much. Yeah, yeah. So that makes, of course, Leiden interesting.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, there can be very good reasons to go somewhere.
Oh
else.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. Normally, you enter study with the graduation research project, so it's a 30 EC course project, and meaning, it's really your half a year focus on your own research. Of course, you have your supervisor there. Actually, you get 2 supervisors, one with whom you start a project, and often when the project crystallizes more, a second supervisor gets involved. We're not interested in you writing long theses, but short results in the written format, in the form of a paper, and often there are a lot of other forms of output to make you experience the result in
Exactly.
in other
So
ways.
not just a scientific paper, but very often also something else, like something that you can feel, see, or otherwise experience.
Yeah. Very quickly, not the most beautiful slide maybe, but an example of another graduation research project. Yeah, so we saw Green Spot with his drone and the birds. This is a project of Mike Lanen that recently graduated, and he studied whether you remember something is context dependent or not, and he was curious whether it's context dependent on whether you learn it in the real world versus in virtual reality.
So this is a regular test person research, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So here we see all the participants.
Yeah.
Yeah, so of course there are other researchers asking this question in the physical world. For example, asking you when you, it takes too much time, sorry. Let's move on.
I think we should show one more example
Yeah.
of a graduation project, and then
Sure.
and then we're done.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah, no, sure. Here we have Mike actually with his eyes closed, but his work got published at the conference. That is not uncommon. We want to support our students to, if we think it's research that's meaningful and publishable, to also do that. Yeah, so we see him here actually presenting his actual research. I would say one last example of a graduation research project. I will say, well, I'm going to ask you, Bas, to
well,
speak
the
about
cool thing of this project is that the question was very personal. Like, what is it about modern art? How do I feel towards it? So that was a very personal question, and the end product was a series of essays in a nice booklet, which is a very peculiar form and not the regular scientific output. But this is also output that you can defend is scientific. So it typically is something that we allow our students to do, and at other places at the university you will have difficulties to say that this is also scientific output.
Yeah, so the final result is a bundle of essays. I think there's another aspect that I like very much about it, and that is that she took herself as point of departure for the research. So she started to map the question of what is involved on the liking of modern art, but she started to draw lines and map the territory from asking her own questions, from doing experiments herself, and from there trying to map this out and checking out what's involved, always in very concise and very simple questions, instead of trying to answer everything at the same time, because of course it's a very complex field, but by reducing it each time to one aspect, it became very, I would say, crisp, a very crisp kind of research, and really, lines that intersect each other in interesting ways.
Okay. I want to know how much time we have, since I think
We have another
only
5
1
minutes.
minute.
We have another 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
Yeah, but I think it's getting time to round up. I would like to go to admissions.
Yep.
It's an important topic. So, sure, a bachelor diploma is required, but we have students with all different kind of backgrounds. Yeah? So we have students in Dutch, we call it alpha, beta, and gamma background, meaning students, let's say, from a natural sciences background, a humanities background, and or
Social sciences.
Social sciences, exactly. Yeah, so we admit approximately, but we don't have a numerous fixes, but this is what it turns out to be. We admit approximately 30 students per year. Well, it says computer programming, basic skills are assumed. We spoke about that. But I would say much more important is a real research interest is what we select our students on.
You should not be afraid of the computer and to learn about it. That's all that we require.
Yeah, yeah. And so we can say students are all different because of the different backgrounds. But I would always say that our students share one thing, and I find it much more important to focus on that, on what they share. And they share that they really want to be researched and actually show already, I would say, and it's not about what you have done, but it's a way of thinking, show already from the start of the program that they have a critical and curious mind and think as researchers. And I think that is what our students have in common with each other.
Definitely,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so sure, we will look at CV, but especially we will look at motivation. And yes, there will be an admission interview. So there's a motivation letter, but the other important part of the admission is the admission interview, in which we discuss and check you out. Sure, well, the other thing, sure, you should have an affinity with science and technology. I think that's completely obvious. And yes, you have to be able to speak English, because it's an English-spoken program. So also, that's something you will be tested upon, not by us personally, but by
the university in
by
general.
the university in general. I think that's it. And
anything we missed? Are you pleased that you're studying media technology? Do you like it?
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. But I like it especially because, well, you meet people from all over the place, but you also learn new things from everyone. So not just from like your teachers, but also from your fellow students, and you just have fun like wherever you go. So that's definitely why I like studying media technology. Just
good, nice ending, I would say.
Yeah. Well, and I think the students, it's not a huge, it's not a large program, so I think there's really a community, but I think there's a lot of respect for each other. So again, a lot of students collaborate, but also I see students always change with whom they collaborate very often. So it's not the same groups, and I find this very interesting. So I would say there's really, in that sense, a continuous changing dialogue going on between the students.
Yeah, that's just because we all have different interests and they interact with each other differently. So that's why we always just kind of hang out with different people and be like, hey, what can you add? Or hey, what can I add to you? So
Very nice.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Let's close up with this slide. Yeah. So the only important thing that is here, I think, is the URL. Mediatechnology.leiden.edu is the website of our program. It gives you more information than the information that you can find on the master section of the university, which gives you also very important information. But for example, if you want to see some projects that are being done and you want to follow up, you can go to this particular website. Thank you very much.
Cheers.